In the news tonight, Christians in Jordan and across the Middle East celebrate Easter with prayers for peace. The death toll from a bomb blast on a crowded Syrian bus convoy near Aleppo rises to at least 126. And votes for Turkish constitutional change to hand President Erdogan's sweeping powers hold a narrow lead. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Jordanian Christians celebrated Easter with masses and prayers held in churches across the kingdom. In an Easter message, head of the Council of Churches in Jordan, Patriarch Theophilus III, said the king had set a model in Muslim-Christian coexistence. He prayed that the country will remain safe and secure and a beacon of love and peace. Prime Minister Hani al-Mulki wished Christians a happy Easter and conveyed to them the good wishes of His Majesty King Abdullah. During a visit to the Roman Orthodox diocese, accompanied by a number of ministers, where he met with heads of churches in the kingdom, Mulki said Jordanians are one family participating in building their country. He said Jordan, under the leadership of His Majesty King Abdullah, is a secure and stable country, and that Jordanians together seek to achieve their national socio-economic developmental goals and partner to uplift their country and preserve its achievements. Mulki called recent attacks on churches in Egypt a shame and said that terrorists will receive their punishment. Metropolitan Benedictus of Philadelphia said Christians are part and parcel of society and all Jordanians come together united in rejecting division and sedition and proceed to build their nation. Senate President Faisal Faiz, who led senators during a visit to the Roman Orthodox Church, said Jordan is proud of its national unity that made the country an oasis of stability. And Lower House Speaker Atif Tarauni also congratulated Christians of all denominations in Jordan and the Middle East. In Jerusalem, Christians marked Easter with a mass led by the custodian of the Holy Land. Hundreds of pilgrims came to the church in the Old City for a festive mass to mark the resurrection of Jesus. The church is believed to be the site where Jesus was crucified, buried, and resurrected. In Egypt, hundreds of the Christian Copt community gathered at a church in Tanta to mourn at least 27 people who were killed in a suicide bombing there a week earlier. Under heavy security, mourners filed past a flower-strewn memorial at the Majarjis church with incense burning and offered prayers. Elsewhere in the Middle East, hundreds of Iraqi Christians gathered in a church damaged by Daesh on the outskirts of Mosul to celebrate the resurrection at the church for the first time since 2014. The mass ended with a festive distribution of soft drinks and colored eggs in the inner courtyard. Pope Francis used his Easter address to condemn yesterday's deadly attack on a bus convoy in Syria. In his To the City and the World message to the thousands of pilgrims who gathered in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican, the Pope also spoke against old and new forms of slavery and discrimination. At an earlier vigil, Pope Francis spoke of migrant Spain and criticized paralyzing and barren bureaucracies that stand in the way of change. Here's more on the Pope's Easter address.
Pope Francis denounced oppressive regimes in his Easter message Sunday and called for world leaders to prevent the spread of conflict. In his annual Easter Sunday Mass, his fifth as Catholic leader, the Pope addressed tens of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. The area was under significant security measures following recent vehicle attacks against pedestrians in London and Stockholm. In his traditional Urbi et Orbi message, Francis spoke of a world lacerated by conflicts and laced with tensions, without naming any specific governments.
In the complex and often dramatic situations of today's world, may the risen Lord guide the steps of all those who work for justice and peace. May He grant the leaders of nations the courage they need to prevent the spread of conflicts and to put a halt to the arms trade.
He also referred to the beloved and martyred Syria, condemning an attack on a bus convoy of evacuees outside Aleppo Saturday, which reportedly killed over 100 people. The Pope often uses services during Holy Week and throughout the year to draw attention to the plight of war victims, refugees and migrants.
The death toll from yesterday's suicide attack on a crowded Syrian bus convoy outside the Syrian city of Aleppo has risen to at least 126. Syrian rescue workers of the civil defense said they had taken away at least 100 bodies from the site of the blast. The explosion hit buses carrying Shiite residents as they waited to cross from rebel-held territory into government territory in an evacuation deal between the warring sides. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said those killed were mostly residents of the villages of Al-Fu'a and Kafraya in Idlib province, but included rebel fighters guarding the convoy. The war monitor said the number of dead could rise further. Under the deal, the residents from the two villages were being moved into Aleppo in exchange for the relocation of hundreds of rebels and their families from the government-besieged area near Damascus. And in the Syrian capital, blasts from mortar shells fired by rebels hit the Umayyad Square in central Damascus, killing at least one person and wounding several others. Heavy flooding shut down all Tigris River bridges in the Iraqi city of Mosul. The rising waters cut off supplies for people fleeing heavy fighting in the old city of Mosul and forcing people to cross by boat. Hundreds of people crossed with small wooden boats carrying suitcases and bags full of clothes. Around 400,000 people are trapped in western Mosul, where Iraqi forces have been trying to dislodge Daesh terrorist group from the old city, their last stronghold. A UN official said no aid convoy has reached the Hamam al-Alil camp southwest of Mosul, the main arrival point for people fleeing the fighting since the Tigris bridges were closed.
We urge the local government and the security forces to repair the bridge to help bring life back to normal. The provision of aid and medicine to the right side and to the camps have come to a halt. Therefore, we urge more efforts to reconstruct the bridges or bring larger boats to make life easier for the people.
Thousands of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails begin an open-ended hunger strike tomorrow to protest medical negligence, administrative detention without trial, and other violations. A Palestinian official said over 1,500 prisoners will start the strike, led by jailed Palestinian leader Marwan al-Barghouti. He said the rest of the estimated 6,500 Palestinian prisoners held by Israel will join the strike in the next days. PLO Executive Committee member Hanan Ashrawi said the hunger strike is a legitimate response to the Israeli measures and a peaceful means to win their freedom. Millions of Turks voted on a controversial new draft constitution that would give sweeping new powers to the country's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. With 98.2% of ballots counted, yes was on about 51.3%, and the partial official results indicated Turks granted the president the most radical change to the country's political system in its modern history. Votes against the changes have been rising, taking the lead in Istanbul, Turkey's biggest city. Meanwhile, Turkey's main opposition party said it will call for a recount in up to 60% of votes, as exit polls show the yes campaign to grant Erdogan new powers is narrowly ahead. Here's more.
The Turkish president casts his vote in an election which could change the face of politics in the country. Recep Tayyip Erdogan is seeking to replace Turkey's current political state with an all-powerful presidency. The latest opinion polls give a narrow lead for a yes vote, which could see Erdogan able to stay in office until at least 2029. Erdogan and those voting yes say the changes are needed to amend the current constitution and to overcome the security and political challenges Turkey faces. Opponents say a yes vote would be dangerous for the country in the wake of a crackdown by Erdogan, which has seen some 47,000 people jailed and 120,000 sacked or suspended from their jobs following a failed coup last July. Despite the move drawing criticism from Turkey's Western allies, Erdogan has implied that he'll continue the purge if the referendum falls in his favour. Prime Minister Binali Yildirim voting too. If the yes vote wins, his role will be abolished. The new executive president also able to draft the budget and declare a state of emergency. If the yes predicting pollsters are right or wrong, Turkey is at a crossroads, and it may well remain at them for some time to come.
North Korea attempted to launch a missile on its east coast, but it is believed to have failed. The U.S. Pacific Command said the missile blew up almost immediately off the Korean peninsula's east coast. The attempted missile launch comes a day after the North held a military parade in its capital, marking the birth anniversary of the state founder and displaying what appear to be new long-range ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said the United States' resolve and commitment to its alliance with South Korea had never been stronger. Pence was speaking at an Easter service with U.S. troops in South Korea, the first leg of an Asia tour.
Let me take a brief moment to give a little bit of introduction.
This morning's provocation from the North is just the latest reminder of the risks each one of you face every day in the defense of the freedom of the people of South Korea and the defense of America in this part of the world. This is a challenging time all over the world, but especially here in the Asia Pacific. The opportunity for me to be here today at such a time as this is a privilege for me. But let me assure you, under President Trump's leadership, our resolve has never been stronger.
With 8 days until the French presidential election, uncertainty is in the air as one of the most unpredictable elections in modern French history looms. Voters are saying they are unsure which presidential candidate they would pick. A groundswell of anti-establishment feeling and frustration at France's economic malaise has seen a growing number of voters turn their backs on the mainstream parties. 11 candidates will compete in the first round of the election, with expectation that none of them will win an outright majority of 50% in the first round. This means a runoff vote is almost certain, with the top two contenders going through to a decisive second round on May 5th. Tens of thousands took to the streets across the United States and beyond to press President Donald Trump to release his tax returns. The rallies were to dispute Trump's claim that the public does not care about the tax issue. The demonstrations were intended to focus on Trump's refusal to disclose his tax-paying history, something his predecessors have done for more than 40 years. Critics have raised questions about what Trump's tax returns say about his net worth and about his various business ties. Organizers of the tax march planned events in more than 150 cities, including New York, Chicago, Washington, Los Angeles, as well as cities in Europe, Japan, and New Zealand.
Today, across America, we are taking the gloves off to say it's time to knock off the tax ripoffs.
We're living in a time where honesty has no currency, and I think because of that, it's kind of all we have. And the only way to really penetrate this administration is to take to the streets and to be relentless.
The world's oldest person died at the age of 117. Emma Morana is believed to be the world's oldest person and the last to be born in the 19th century. The Italian was born on November 29, 1899, 4 years before the Wright brothers first took to the air. Her life spanned 3 centuries, 2 world wars, and more than 90 Italian governments. Morana celebrated her 117th birthday last year at her home in northern Italy.
Ultimo sorriso Emma, e chiudiamo le porte. Vuoi assaggiare un pezzetto? Qua la forchetta. Prova se vuoi, se ti va.
Germany's 2-time Olympic champion Christina Vogel won her 9th world title at the Track Cycling World Championships in Hong Kong. She finished 0.061 seconds quicker than Colombia's Marta Bayona. Nikki de Grendel of Belgium won the bronze. France's world record holder François Pervis won the men's 1 kilometer time trial. He finished comfortably ahead of Czech Republic's Thomas Babek and Frenchman Quentin Lafargue, who tied for silver to the thousandth of a second. This is only the second time the World Championship has been held in Asia, with 11 countries winning world titles. Thousands took part in the 5-kilometer color run along the banks of the Seine in France. The race sees participants dusted in colorful powders before partying in front of the Eiffel Tower. Although the race was not timed, meaning participants were able to run or walk the course without any pressure, Jack from Scotland was the first to cross the finish line. And finally, clear skies, but relatively cold conditions tonight in the hilly areas, the Badia and the eastern plains, but pleasant in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Winds will be northwesterly light. Tomorrow, a slight rise in temperature is in the forecast to become around seasonal average this time of year and creating spring conditions across much of the country. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a relatively hot day with a high of 30 degrees, northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Christians in Jordan and across the Middle East celebrate Easter with prayers for peace. The death toll from a bomb blast on a crowded Syrian bus convoy near Aleppo rises to at least 126. And votes for Turkish constitutional change to hand President Erdogan's sweeping powers holds a narrow lead. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Aliyah Tuqan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.